Howdy guys, I'm back, taking a look at two games today. One I just played at our Tuesday night rated games at the Denver Chess Club, and this other one is from my first round at the National Open. So we're gonna look at the Denver Chess Club game first because I think it's a good lead into the original game. So the theme of these is like when you're playing against the queen's pawn opening, you need to have a pawn break in mind. You know, if you don't ever play for a pawn break as black, or even white sometimes in these queen's pawn openings, you will most surely lose the game. Almost will be a fact if you never play for a pawn, if you never play for a pawn break. That's why moves like knight c3 and knight c6 are so bad in queen's pawn openings, because typical pawn breaks come from these c pawns, right? They're some of the safest pawns to pawn break with. They're not close to your king. They're on the queen side. They open up squares for your queen. Knight likes to sit behind him. Yeah. So let's check it out. I go into what I was thinking was a solid opening because I'm kind of still working my way around what I want to play against d4. I used to play the Benoni, and I still do, but I've been experimenting with new things. So I tried out this Slav defense, which I thought was going to be super solid, but I ended up walking into like a super sharp line after e4. The move order I should have played was before c6, I needed to go knight f6 because knight f6 nicely controls the e4 break. And so if you'll see, white here has gotten c4 and e4 in. They've gotten both their pawn breaks, whereas black doesn't have a pawn break here really. I've stumbled into problems. I believe my best try was to try and go takes, knight takes. Here, let me turn the computer off. Knight takes, and now this bishop b4 check, and we play this Marshall Gambit style, which I just learned was a thing, the Marshall Gambit. And play is sure to go crazy from here. But nonetheless, let's keep going. Notice how my lack of pawn breaks here. Just developing my pieces. I take this like in Nimzo style, even though I don't know why I should have done that. I thought maybe the c pawns would be weak. With that in mind, I also went queen a5, but that just kind of helps him develop with queen d3. Queen d3 is a nice developing move, defending and also attacking. Okay, I go h6 because I'm scared of bishop g5 stuff, pinning my knight, maybe threatening to take it in the future. If I were to castles and move this knight away, he could go bishop g5 and threaten to take the knight for free. Because if I were to take back, I'd end up probably getting mated on h7, so I'm already in a very scary position. Grayson just castles, and I think this was maybe my chance to swing the queen over for a little bit of defense, but I unfortunately didn't go for it. Oh, and also, let's go back a second. In this position, this was my chance to go for my final pawn break. Here I had e5, and I was calculating this during the game, but I just didn't play it because I was so scared that my king was still on the center of the board. I don't think I had to be so worried about it, though, because maybe if white has already been castled, you know, maybe e5 wouldn't be an option, but e5 is just a great move here. It does what I need it to do. It's opening this bishop up in the future. It's challenging this center pawn mass, and it's maybe threatening to clear open the e-file for quick castles and rook e8 maybe, but it's just a lot better than what I played. So let's take a look at it real fast. e5, and he could take twice and maybe get checked, but I don't think this is very good. Yeah, this is equal. So the main line after e5 is castles. E4 is not really a threat here because I haven't castled yet, so he can always just pin me in whatever style he likes. I thought maybe I had knight g4 here, but no, I'm not castled yet. So even though this isn't the best thing for white or for black, like it's better than what happened. At least I've gained a little more space. This pawn can be sacrificed, but I'm not just letting myself get checkmated like what happened in the game. So always think about those pawn breaks, guys. They're pretty useful. Let me turn the engine off. Maybe I should have swung the queen over. He goes bishop f4. Just clamping down on e5. I'm never going to get a pawn break there anymore. I go rook e1 with like silly trap ideas. Not really a trap, but I was thinking I could play knight c5 to try and get his queen off this diagonal of doom. Because right now this knight on f6 is really tied down to checkmate threats and just his queen getting into h7. So diverting his queen would be awesome for me. After rook d8, maybe that was my last chance to play queen h5, but it just felt like the queen didn't have very many squares over here, so I was a bit scared to do it. But at the same time, it's very misplaced on a5, I feel like, too. You know, my king only has so many defenses over here, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces pointing at it. So let's see how I like really ruin this position. He goes knight e5. I go knight f7. Maybe this was my chance for knight d3 or c5. Let's turn the engine on again real fast. Yeah, you know, I can play knight c5, but then I have to come back. And, you know, he still has like a ton of plans he can play for, where it's like black doesn't have a lot of good squares for their pieces, you know? There's no weaknesses in white's camp to attack. There's nothing very obvious. At the most, you could say like c4 is something to attack, but it's not really that. C4 is not as important as my king side over here. Grayson's already got the initiative, so weak attacking moves like attacking c4 will probably just make me mated sooner at this point. Knight f8. He's already finding tactics. This is bishop takes h6 is the best move. I'm pretty screwed at this point already. Like, I didn't get that pawn break, and now all of a sudden it's just like I'm getting attacked and losing the game. Okay. This was a silly move too. I don't know what's best here. I'll check it out, but it was just a desperation move. I didn't really see that he had queen g3 on the horizon, which is a problem. I really need to be looking out for these attacking motifs for my opponents better. But so I went b5. And yeah, I mean, the computer just wants me to give up the exchange, which makes a lot of sense. We need to nullify his attack as quick as we can. Yeah. You know, we're down a rook and a pawn, but at least we're not getting mated. And we can show his attack a little more. He missed knight takes g6. I saw this for him, but he didn't go for it, thankfully. It probably would have been nicer if he played knight takes g6, just so the game could have ended sooner. But yeah, there's not much to look at with this game. Bishop takes g6, and like this discovery is too much. Computer sees a ridiculous line with rook d4 sack in hopes of like swinging it over probably, but there's just this, and it's a nice mate in 15. But if you didn't find the insane rook takes d4, let's say you play bishop b7, then it's just checkmate in 4. And it's like, wow, I already lost in 15 moves. That's crazy. So pawn breaks, people. So let's check out my National Open game. Turn that engine off. I lost this game. This is from my opponent's perspective. Like I said, I'm a Benoni player. So the nice part of the Benoni, I've realized without even realizing it, is that black's pretty much just starting with their pawn break from the start, or letting them play d5, and then after d5's been played, you can hold off the checkmate for a long time, because it's a slightly more closed position. So the Benoni's been helping me a lot to be stupid, because I didn't even realize I was playing these pawn breaks so early. So, yeah, she goes for the more passive line. If you really want to play for a win, you should go d5. But if you're more comfortable with e3 and more like London setups or more Kali passive setups, e3 is a great option. But so this is nice because black has already gotten their pawn break in, and their development's going to be a lot easier. So I go bishop b4. It's a move I've been experimenting with, kind of Nimzo style. I've been thinking about transitioning into that. But I go d5, which felt appropriate. My plan here is to create an isolated pawn, which is super common in queen's pawn openings, and blockade it and eventually attack it. So I do that fairly well, and I think it's all thanks to me having already played like d4 and c5, getting those pawn breaks in. But my position still isn't like super easy to play or anything. But at least here I can have like a manageable plan. You know, the general plan is just like blockade d5 as much as we can and trade the minor pieces if possible. But I definitely let her get way too much counterplay. And she ends up getting like a similar piece set up to Grayson, which I found very interesting. Another reason why I chose this game. If you notice, it's already looking very similar with this queen on d3, the bishop on c2. Soon to have the bishop on f4 and a knight on e5. But I've achieved my plan at least, and I believe this is all thanks to the early c5 Benoni style pawn break. My pieces are much more active. Remember this bishop last time? It was able to find a home on c6. Let's just check back to Grayson's game. Let's look at the difference. Let's just compare the two move 10s here. Yeah, so on move 10, like, I already have places I can put my pieces at least. You know, versus this Grayson game where I have no pawn break in and I'm just kind of super undeveloped. Okay. Alright, I control d5. Maybe a little too much. I have 5 pieces protecting d5 at the moment. Maybe a bit of overkill, but maybe now my queen can move off of the protection of d5, you know, over defending. But I put a knight on d5. There's not very many good options. Similar to this Grayson game, I'm in this position where this knight on f6 is basically pinned by tactics, or it can't move because of tactics, you know. If this knight ever moves, I'm gonna get checkmated on h7, or at least allow a queen infiltration, which we couldn't allow. So I've somehow fallen into this extreme kingside pressure in both games. It'll be interesting to see how I can avoid this for next time. So she just stacks up the pressure. Notice how I can't take this knight, or like every move she plays is very trappy. So if I were to take on f4, she already has knight takes f6 check, followed by queen h7 check stuff. So I can't really play this. I play rook e8, giving my king a square. And then I just instantly blunder a fork, and like all of my hard work is gone. Like I've blockaded her pawn, I've tried the hardest I can, and I don't know, maybe it's my nerves, first round nerves, playing a strong 1800, but I just blunder this fork, which is super silly. Dropping the exchange. Maybe I can play queen e7 instead here. Because another problem with, like, say, queen a5 is that they can go takes, and queen h7 check. So my queen was needed for the defense on f6. It kind of sucks not having the light squared bishop right now. Or the dark squared bishop. typically the dark squared bishop in the Benoni is a very critical defender of like the dark squares on the king side. So I think in kind of mixing my lines up with like the Nimzo-ish bishop b4 and takes, I'm kind of setting myself up for a bad Benoni, almost. But that is just a theory. Okay, let's get to the main line. So, I mean, I just completely hang a fork. Not much to say about it. I'm thinking I still have like a little bit of counterplay. Like, my idea is to go like bishop a4 and try and trade off his bishop pair, and this light squared bishop is extremely strong. If I can get this bishop off the board, I don't have to worry about getting checkmated on h7 anymore. This knight can be freed. You know, there's still a little bit of game to be played, but I just get tilted and play some fast moves and just blunder a ton, which is never the best feeling. Of course, she doesn't want to trade this awesome light squared bishop. She's also pinning the g-pawn, so stuff to look out for. She takes advantage of that like instantaneously with this nice queen g3 maneuver. Bishop a4, and now bishop e4. This comes with a threat that I just completely miss. She's threatening to take on d5, and of course this knight can't move because of checkmate on g7. And even if I play e takes d5, she can just take on f6. I'm just busted already, and I blunder that completely. I needed to come back and defend. Maybe, definitely not from b3. Yeah, I probably just needed to come back and defend here, but I wanted that bishop trade so badly I hung a knight. And here I just play for a few little traps because I know I'm already done. You know, not much point in taking these. I don't want any pieces off the board anymore. I need to play for a checkmate or a queen trap, or just, that's all I can do at this point. Or c3. I'm trying to attack as much as I can. I thought she just had this. And she's up a nice whole rook in this line. And a pawn. She's up a rook and a pawn. Oh. Accidentally clicked out. So easily resignable, but she plays it even better, I believe. Bishop takes b7. My coach liked this better for her. Bishop f5, going for a sneaky queen trap, but she doesn't fall for that. If she were to take, like, say the rook on c8 here, is the queen trapped? Is this correct? Yeah, I have a little queen trap here, but I'm still busted. Oh no, she can just go here. Okay, never mind. There was not even a queen trap to be had. Even in the worst of lines, there wasn't even a queen trap. But alright, I've turned the engine on. Let's check out the opening. Okay, I'm playing a Benoni. She gives up most of her advantage with e3. Takes. And yeah, bishop e7 is probably a much better idea here. You know, we don't actually want to trade off this bishop for this knight anymore, I think. Couldn't tell you exactly why, but I would prefer bishop e7 in the future if I were to stay with these lines. Bishop d3. Bishop g5. Knight e2. And yeah, I thought she could take here as well. She still gets the isolated pawn, but at least I don't get that tempo on her bishop, because the bishop actually wants to stay on this diagonal. When she lets me play on d takes c4, I think I'm kind of gaining a tempo, because the bishop is not happy on c4. The bishop wants to be on c2, and with the queen on d3, like both Grayson and Angelina were able to construct in our games. Okay, I takes, which is correct. And see, it's 0.0 here, so I just note, like, look at the difference. You know, it's 0.0 here at move 10, Versus against Grayson, without my pawn break, I'm already like looking at a 0.8. I'm looking at 0.2 at move 10. Or +2 for him on move 10. So, pawn breaks, guys. Lesson of the video. Okay, knight b6 is correct. You know, gotta blockade the passed pawn. This is Nimzowitsch stuff. This is my system. Could have gone knight d5 earlier. That makes a lot of sense. Bishop g5 here is much scarier than in the Grayson game, in my opinion. But let's see. Bishop g5, and the idea is... Oh, now we can go h6 because it has a tempo. And queen b6, exploiting the b pawn maybe. Oh, the b pawn in this? No, I get that doesn't work. Let's say b5. Oh, that hangs the knight. Okay. All right, I see it. Takes. Queen d2 looks better. And I mean, this is just playable for black. You know, the pawn's blockaded. We're gonna try and trade the minor pieces, and then play for like the e5 break here. You know, classic chess strategy. You got a rook on d6, a queen on d7, a rook on d8. White's defending with a rook on d3, a queen on d2, and a rook on d1. And you just play e5 and win a pawn. Shout out Jeremy Silman. Okay, but this is not what happened in the game. I played something similar. Just overprotecting the shit out of d5. Yeah, I had the chance to trade off a pair of a minor piece. Although, even though it's scary as fuck. But this exchange makes a lot of sense. I like it more than queen b6, honestly. Knight e4, queen e4, and then just back to f6. And now the only guy that can harass this knight is the dark squared bishop, but the queen is hit, so there's not enough time. Let's say the queen comes back to d3. Ooh, wow. And black is getting out of nowhere, just because we have one pair of knights off the board, black is getting some initiative. You know, all of a sudden there's squares for black's pieces. Black's pieces can coordinate. This looks 1,000 times better than what happened in the game. I should have traded. That's a great lesson right there. I had that chance to trade and I didn't take it. Really should have. You could look at queen b6 too. This looks interesting. Engine wants to sack the pawn. Makes a lot of sense. Oh yeah, the threat with queen b6 was maybe the skewer. Maybe that's the swindler shit the engine was going for. I see. And yeah, just trade the knights. Trade the knights. Get the queen off this deadly diagonal. Trade the knights. Yeah. Damn. Yeah, this is so much more logical. And I just hang an exchange. I go from minus 0.2 to plus to she's up +2. Chess is brutal. You know, you play like a great strategy-filled game, and then one silly move, and you just blunder tactic, and game over. Instead of bishop a2 here, or a4, knight a5 is ballsy. Queen d3. We're in time to play g6, and like, this is like the best bishop in the world. This is not what we're supposed to let white do in the Nimzo Indian, I believe. So we've made mistakes here. But it looks playable-ish. But now I'm starting to just blunder everything, yeah. And it's too much now. Knight h5 was correct. I'm good at seeing these like last-ditch engine moves at least. My My Hail Mary, like, engine Houdinis. I can see these at least. Too bad it's always too late. Yeah. Alright, well, I don't know how I squeezed 2 games in 25 minutes again. But, hopefully it was instructive. As always, see ya.